Hello, I'm Mac, at least for a day, and everything's going to be okay. I'm joined today by the cousin of Sleep. He's going to talk to us about his ideas for No Man's Sky. Now, one thing I want to ask you, the cousin of Sleep is Death, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, so go ahead and tell me what you wanted to.
Okay, first let me say thanks for having me, and want to go over some ideas that I have for the future of the game. So my first idea is a landmark system. So it would be accessible from like the cartographer in the space station, or maybe even the planetary archive to give them some more use. But it would include crafted assets, like handcrafted assets by Hello Games, such as like mega peaks, so large, you know, super massive snow-capped mountains,
Hmm.
uh, mega falls, so like large waterfalls with, you know, large rivers flowing into them, uh, mesa tables, giant geysers or sulfur pools, giant trees similar to like, Avatar, the movie, large cliff faces, cliffs of Dover, mega canyons, mega caves, ice caves for ice planets, mega rivers, rainforests with multiple leveled, like tiered canopies, iceberg clusters, things like that. But I imagine it would be something like you would get coordinates for it, like an archive or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, lots of good ideas there for different formations that we don't have. I liked the first thing you said about snow-capped mountains. That's something we don't really have. We do have some kind of different patches. We have like sand along the beach of places where the ground changes a little bit, and then we have on lush planets we'll sometimes have, places that are really grassy, and then we'll have like bare patches. But yeah, another nice like change of the color of the terrain would be snow at the tops of mountains. If they could figure out a way to make the peaks of, and when I say peaks, I'm talking about the sound peaks. The terrain generation No Man's Sky is created through sound waves. So if they could create a way for the tops of sound waves to create snow on the tops of mountains, that would be really cool. And then other ideas you had there, I've talked about a little bit in some videos a while back, like the waterfalls. I really think that we are getting fluid physics or better water animations at least soon, because somebody found info about water physics in the files. Obviously, it's not in the game yet, but we have the beginnings of some kind of change to water physics or something like that. So I really think we are probably going to get that in the update, in addition to many other features and lots of other cool ideas you had there about snow caves and geysers is another one. Very good ideas.
Right, and so the hopefully it's not just water physics. So I've also seen the data mines, but hopefully it's liquid physics because this could open, a lot of new avenues for diversity. So I have a whole thing here on liquid physics for um, rivers and waterfalls, obviously, but also flowing lava, which would be a huge deal for volcanic planets. Uh, so we could also have like lava lakes for volcanic planets, waves. Uh, One thing that I would really like to see is a system to distinguish lakes and oceans, and populate them accordingly. So different flora fauna for lakes versus oceans. Um, yeah, multi-biome planets for sure. Um, Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't even have to be more than two. It's just something different than what we have now. So We could have like dunes and oasis, planet, or volcanic swamp marsh planets. You could combine peculiarities like fractured and cabled. Um, Thick snow would be nice for like sub-zero planets. Um, so another thing that I have here is different super biomes. So like a giant crystal biome, a dark planet with bioluminescent flora and fauna, high security slash fortress world. So patrolling sentinels on land and in space, in like a contingent or like a detachment. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Before you get too much farther, yeah, you've got a really lot of good ideas. As far as lava goes, we talked for a long, long time that we wanted lava planets. People asked for it for so long, and we sort of got lava planets, but in a way we didn't at all. We really didn't get lava. We got these mountain assets that are always the same that have this static lava stuff that isn't really a fluid, doesn't really do much except do a bunch of heat damage to you if you jump into it. Um, so essentially, we haven't got lava planets. We've got volcano planets, planets that have these volcano assets on them. But like you said, it would be nice to have lava rivers, lava lakes, maybe even lava oceans. That was what I had been asking for the longest time before we got lava planets, but we never did get them. We got, volcano planets, which aren't nearly as exciting as what anyone was imagining, I don't think. So it was definitely a missed opportunity, and I hope they decide to improve lava planets so that they have actual lava. Like you said, if they do add fluid physics, not just water, we might get some actual flowing lava of some sort. Um, Trying to remember the other thing you were talking about. Tell me again the part you started about the second section there.
the multi-biome planets.
Not that. There was what else were you talking about?
There's multi-biome, and then there's the super and sub-biomes. So like the giant crystal biome or dark planet,
Oh
so
yeah.
on and so forth.
Yeah, Dark Planet is something that I have been asking for since the very beginning. I
Right, the trailer.
Yeah, in some ways we kind of got, well, I mean, we've gotten more bioluminescent stuff, but I would like a really scary dark type planet that, I mean, we've
Mm-hmm.
got planets that have like this weird filter that makes everything black and white, but I mean, like maybe it would always be overcast, like super dark as if it were nighttime, even
Right,
in the
that's exactly what
daytime.
I mean.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then it would be creepy. You'd have some bioluminescence, but it wouldn't be very bright. It would just be kind of this soft glow that would allow you to see because the sky would be blacked out. And then there could be some kind of hazard, a new type of hazard instead of the types of storms we have now. There could be a darkness hazard, which is basically a dimensional fluctuation that um, damages you, and there'd be a new type of protection for it or something. Or maybe there wouldn't. It would be a new type of hazard that you can't protect against, at least not until later. Like it might be like really difficult to obtain shielding for it, um, or something like that. And of course, it'd be a planet with really scary stuff like roaming biological horrors, or some new type of creepy creature, and corrupted sentinels. They'd basically be like corrupted. We have corrupted planets, infected planets. With weird stuff on them, but I mean, they're just weird looking assets. It would be better if it were like a truly sinister planet where there are corrupted sentinels instead of normal sentinels, biological horrors everywhere, and it'd just be a really scary, creepy type of planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that actually kind of folds in nicely to my next section, which is flora and fauna improvements. But so hazardous flora is a big uh, like bugaboo of mine because there's only like what, three of them. They've been the same forever. So I'd like to see the variety of those increased, um, with specific assets for specific biomes or planets, right? So like lava, or volcanic, hazardous flora fauna, underwater. Okay. Um, so on and so forth. But also making fauna and flora specific to certain biomes, right? So you have a degree of specificity to flora, but not fauna. So long hair should be on sub-zero planets, right? And then more reptilian, um, or like bird feathered should be on like volcanic worlds, you know. Um, Another thing would be improving pathing and scripting different behaviors for fauna. So drinking from shallow ponds, right? Uh, Different herd mechanics, bathing, uh, scattering when a predator is around, sleeping, or like nesting with their young, something like that. Um, and then there's a lot of goofy assets that I'd like to see removed and replaced. Kind of an overhaul for the fauna. You know what I mean?
Such as, you mean like
Like there's
flying cows?
there's that goofy looking like goat face that you
Yeah.
see all the time.
Yeah,
You know what I
it's
mean?
it's such a meme now. I don't think they could take it out. There'd be huge backlash from some of the community because there's actually
Well,
a decal of that face. So Hello Games played into
no,
that
I'm sure,
because
but
it was
you
such a
get at least
meme.
make it less. Yeah, at least make it less common though. I mean, God, I just
Yeah.
see that everywhere.
Yep. Yeah, I think that could be solved by just more variety. If you increase the amount of assets in creatures that, that particular one wouldn't show up as often, it'd still be something you could occasionally find, but just not. Pretty much every planet has a space cow with either that face or some other space cow that has a flower for a head or something weird like that.
Right. But that's what I'm saying
Um,
though. Like lock certain flora and fauna into certain biomes that make
Yeah,
sense.
that was the other thing I was going to talk about. I'm not sure I like that idea, because before we got the Origins update, Origins was a really good step in the right direction because before Origins, there was too much specificity, as you said, of flora on planets where, mushrooms were only on toxic planets. Nice, lush type trees were only on lush type planets. Um, Now, since the Origins update, we've gotten really nice combinations of different things. There are mushrooms on lush planets. I'm on a swamp planet right now that has trees that you would normally find on a lush type planet. That's something that I advocated for the longest time, and I'm glad they did, was mixing up the biomes so that you get different combinations. It actually makes things less interesting, in my opinion, if there's just a set number of types of planets and you always see the same types of plants on those planets. Um, and so I'm glad they did that. And so at the same time, I wouldn't really want them to do that per se with fauna. Um, because then you'd only have woolly creatures on cold planets and you'd only have reptiles on hot planets, etc. um, but I mean that kind of contrasts what you talked about multi-biome planets, because then um, that might be the solution, though, is if they had multi-biome planets, then you could have biome specific creatures where the cold sections of the planet are the where the woolly creatures are, and the lizards
Hmm.
and cold-blooded creatures are in the hot sections of the planet. I would not want them to have it so that there's pretty much the exact same type of creatures on every hot planet and so on. I would want there to still be a lot of mix and matches and variety so that each planet is very unique and doesn't seem like a near carbon copy of another planet of the same type. Um, so yeah, there is ways that they could make that work well. I don't want them to get less. Uh, I don't want them to subtract from variety by doing that. I want them to mix things up more so that we get more types of planets and more unique, at least seeming unique planets because they've got different assets than any other lush planet you've been to or whatever.
I get that, and I think the way to mitigate that would just be, you know, just flood it with assets. And if you see like the early concept art for the procedural generation tech, you see all the all the different varieties of creatures that were cut, you know, and it goes with ships, freighters, buildings, colossal buildings. They have all these different concept assets that look amazing, but we only got a few of them. Really, they still have like a you know depth of assets to pull from. But anyways, yeah, I'd like to see that, and yeah, improved random encounters. So space or even planet side random encounters. So in some of the concept art, they have these uh, vertical freighters instead of horizontal. And they're massive. They're like S class, like Star Destroyer type, but vertical. And it'd be kind of interesting to see those land in a cluster or something, or like in a group to make kind of like skyscrapers. Um, Primitive civilizations with camps, like hunting parties, and that would be interesting. As far as space goes, pirate fleets instead of just you know a couple fighters. I'd like to see pirate freighters with like maybe a pirate space station as well, warp in. Um, Landable asteroids and comets, uh, pirate space stations, um, expand space fauna. So, maybe whales or worms or something other than jellyfish
Oh, definitely.
would be
Yeah, like
would be cool to
sandworms
see.
we've gotten. It'd be awesome if we got space worms that are flying out in space.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten the random space encounters, like you said. Um, it'd be nice if, I guess maybe they'd probably have to still do them as random encounters. Actually, what they could do is do them the same way we have freighter fleets that appear. Like when you warp into a star system, a random freighter fleet will kind of appear off
Mm-hmm.
to the side and will just be there. They could do that with space fauna, where you warp into a star system or you exit a pulse jet, and
Mm-hmm.
then some kind of space fauna would appear nearby, a space whale or a space worm or some other kind of mega space fauna,
Exactly.
space Cthulhu, basically a giant jellyfish,
Right.
octopus, or whatever floating out of space. That would be awesome. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe make them not random encounters, but rather just something that's out in space occasionally all the time.
Yep. I agree. Um, yeah. Moving on. So I would like to see main race militaries. So kind of uniformed armor
Mm,
and flying same ship, maybe same color. You know,
yeah.
uh, militarized freighters that were like the same color, or a battle freighter, battleship, or whatever, frigates. Um, yeah. So when assisting in attacks or defense on, you know, said battle freighters, you would have AI ships that would form up on you as wingmen, right? So you'd fly in
Ooh.
formation, which I've seen this a lot in the trailers, where it looks like there's a way to slave or give control to like a lead, and then the altitude and direction is all slave to the lead, right? So it's like a formation, which is kind of interesting. The trailers always kind of give us a preview of where HG is headed because it's kind of like a future build. But I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, that
Mhm.
idea fits in really well with an idea that I've been talking about a lot in my live streams and such, which was I would like to see capital freighters for the leaders of the different races. I won't take too long
Mhm.
explaining this, but basically you'd have like the capital ship of the warlord of the Viking that you could go in, talk to him, maybe do missions for him. Um, Korvax would have a supercomputer in their capital ship that basically helps manage the Korvax convergence, the network of all the Korvax connected together. And then Geck would be like a trade council in their capital ship, and you could talk to all of these and get missions, maybe a new storyline for them. And so your idea of having military uniformed ships is really cool. So those capital ships would have an extra large hangar that would have rows of these matching military or I suppose Viking would have fighters, so they'd have a uniform fighter, and maybe you could buy them from them so that you could own a special Viking military ship, and then Geck would probably be haulers because they haul goods and stuff. They'd have a special uniform hauler
Mhm.
type, and then of course Korvax would be explorers, and they could even expand it to the point where, as the barriers break down more, we could have a special traveler capital ship, and that would probably have exotic ships in it or living ships. Obviously, we have the Nexus, which is basically the hub for travelers now, but it would
Right.
be cool if they would expand and have like traveler fleets. I mean, our fleets are our traveler fleets in a way, but it'd be nice if there were NPCs because there are NPC travelers that we find occasionally. It'd be cool if there
Mhm.
was some kind of NPC traveler federation that started to grow as the barriers between dimensions break down and travelers start to all be together. I don't know if Hello Games wants to go in that direction. Um, but yeah, really, really cool if we did have some kind of military presence so that it actually seems like a real thing and not just the Viking talking about warfare that we never actually see.
Right. And I think that's a really interesting idea because I do believe that there is a new enemy that's coming into the iteration, right? Like there's been a lot of hints to it, but it just makes sense. There needs to be something, some kind of foe other than sentinels to fight. And so hopefully that's what happens. But yeah, going back to the race militaries, um, so I would like to see like high sec or fortress worlds that are controlled by a certain race, right? With you know militaristic structures, um, like bases or outposts, uh, race specific military ground vehicles such as like mechs, exocrafts, ground troops. But it should all be in the style fitting to those to the races. Um, yeah, like maybe military outposts on barren or desert worlds. Uh, you could attack them, you could raid them, but you'd lose standing. Um, Another thing, so you're talking about main race capitals or capital ships. I would like to see the main race homeworlds. So
Yeah,
they would be marked on the galactic map. So maybe they'd all have, it'd be interesting to have like a way to delineate territory, right? So maybe like a certain section of the galaxy is carved out for, Geck, and a certain's carved out for Viking or whatever.
maybe,
But
yeah,
have like
maybe
a right. Go ahead.
maybe controlled by those races, but we wouldn't want like an entire third of the galaxy to only have Viking planets or Viking star systems, because that would mess up user experience. New players, if they started out in the Geck section of the galaxy, all they would ever know is Geck, and they'd never meet Viking and Korvax. But
Right,
you
and
could
it wouldn't
have,
be like a third. It would be, a cluster of planets
yeah, it would
around,
base.
the home world.
What I'm thinking is it would basically be controlled area where it would be like
Hmm.
a predominantly Geck system, but say the Viking kind of control it, like the Viking Empire controls it, and so the Geck that live there have to pay taxes to the Viking, and so on and so forth. And I've talked about this before, that I would like it if there was some way you could support one of the races in taking over control of a star system. There'd be some kind of meter that would show you which race controls the majority of the economics and the military power in that star system, and you would do missions in order to help one of the other races become dominant, and then that race would thank you and give you lots of rewards for helping you do that. And so it would be kind of a
Right.
dynamic thing. We've got the Euclid Galaxy on a special website now that I don't even know if people really use that very much. For all I know, I never use it. But if we could have some kind of dynamic image of what sections of the galaxy are, dominated by each race, and then as players change the balance of power in different star systems, it would start to affect that galaxy map. It would be a little hard because the galaxy is way bigger than we can even wrap our heads around. That it would have very little effect of the map. As players did things, you wouldn't really be able to see a change going on, but maybe they'd have to make it so that, like, if you help a race take over just a few star systems in a star cluster, like that entire star cluster would become controlled by the Gek, and then it could quickly change a lot faster than otherwise. But anyway, back to what
Hmm.
you were saying.
Well, it's more to just give us like a physical place to visit the home world. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
So it's really like the home system that I think Hello Games could, you know, tailor like a home planet, right? So you could, instead of having it completely randomly generated, um, you could put, like, say, cities or buildings that were, closely resemble cities, something like that. But you could also place like stuff to do on them. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be just like a random. But yeah, I also have here race specific motherships. So like what you were saying, but
yeah,
same size and scale as Space Anomaly, and attached to battle fleets.
yep,
Main race should have their own versions of freighters, frigates, battle freighters, motherships, so on and so forth. So
yeah,
basically, all the classes, they should have their own specific version of them.
yeah. Great minds think alike.
Right. And then my last part is Atlas and Sentinels. So the outer rim of Euclid should have a heavy Sentinel presence because of the Viking lore. Or what I've been thinking is that they could retcon the Sentinel presence to closer to the center of the galaxy, right? So the Viking pushed them inwards, and that would make it more challenging as you went, closer in, right? So the closer you got to the center, the more frequently, uh, like, there would be a heavy Sentinel presence on the
Yeah,
planet, so on and so forth.
yeah.
But
That's something I've talked about since I started my channel. Was we need a difficulty curve in the game. The game always just gets
mm-hmm,
easier. The more upgrades you get, obviously you want to get upgrades so that you can do things more efficiently and such. But at the same time, there needs to be some kind of difficulty curve that keeps it from getting too easy and too boring. And
mm-hmm,
obviously, Hello Games said that things would get weirder as you got to the center of the galaxy. That's one feature that they've never added back in, or they've never done, is, things getting weirder closer to the center. I don't think we really need it to get weirder. I think we just need it to get more difficult. So as you get closer to the center, Sentinel presence will increase, like you said. They'll do more damage. Pirates, basically any enemies. There'll be more predators on planets or more aggressive herbivores that are territorial. Um, more pirate attacks, more fleet battles. Like it would just get way, way more intense the closer everything would get more intense as you got closer to the center of the galaxy, like you're saying.
Right, agreed. And maybe that's where you put the Atlas stations, right? So save that for later game, but you put the
Yeah.
Atlas stations kind of surrounding the core of the galaxy.
Yeah, maybe, started out, you find one Atlas station at the beginning of the game, but instead of having it be a really short path, like you'd have to go a really, really far distance before you ever get to the other Atlas stations, and it'll eventually actually lead
Hmm.
you to the center of the galaxy.
That
Rather
makes
than they
sense, yeah.
did they did kind of a cop out with Atlas Rises where they supposedly send you to the center of the galaxy so that you can go to a new galaxy at the end of Atlas Rises, rather than
Mm,
actually having a journey to the center in order to complete that story. I mean,
right.
like I said, they are always kind of looking out for new player user experience. They want new players to accomplish these things early on, rather than it taking so long. But at the same time, it would be nice if we had these really long storyline goals that would require you to actually go to the center.
Well, it's an incentive to, finish the story, right? As you
Yeah.
get closer to the center, which I think has been kind of missing, even after Atlas Rises. There's really no incentive after you hit a certain, milestone where you have units, you have nanites for days. There's really no incentive to like finish the story. You have all the blueprints, you have all the upgrades, so on and so forth. But yeah, I think that would be beneficial. Um, so the Atlas stations, I think there should be like a Sentinel presence around it. So Sentinel fleets would be interesting to fight, and it would be really cool to be able to blow up a freighter.
Ooh.
That's something I've wanted to do for a while, and it would make freighter attacks a little more meaningful. Um, you could do it to the main factions too, but maybe if you just attack it, you lose a certain amount of standing. But if you destroy the fleet, then you lose a whole bunch of standing. Like you reset, go to zero or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then Sentinel controlled systems would be interesting too, where all worlds are, fortress worlds for them, and heavily defended, multiple battle fleets. Every planet with resources is a fortress world with Sentinel factories. Um, building Sentinels. It would be cool to have like a building that you could see Sentinels being assembled and like coming out of.
Yeah.
Um, Outposts and strongholds, but they're dungeons. Strongholds are dungeons, like similar to you know derelict freighters. So you'd
Yep.
use kind of like the
Definitely.
same generation tech, and they're highly defended. But yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. I really enjoyed some of your ideas. And is there anything
Yeah,
else
thanks
you
for
want to
having
say?
me.
Is there anything else you want to say before I end it?
I just really hope we get this update soon. I'm I'm pretty jazzed for it. So
Yeah, me too. All
yeah.
right.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I have been Mac, and this has been the Cousin of Sleep. Thank you for joining us for a day. And remember, everything's going to be okay. Special thanks to my monthly supporters, Shell Owens, JSpot51, Shannon and Jeremy, Marquis BS, Meg Payton, Renee McLeod. It's friends like you that motivate me to keep creating.